The massive chamber stretched endlessly into darkness, its walls lined with holographic displays showing star systems, conquered worlds, and resource reports. 7 different species sat around the curved table, their forms alien, but their expressions uniformly confident. This was the Hegemony Council, and they had never lost a war. Ambassador Veltar shifted in his seat, his 6 eyes scanning the data floating before him. His species, the Corvani, had joined the hegemony 2,000 years ago after witnessing the complete destruction of their neighboring system. Now they served as diplomatic advisors, helping to identify which worlds would surrender quickly and which might need more forceful persuasion. "Show me the new target," Veltar said, voice carrying the authority of countless successful conquests. The central display flickered to life, revealing a small blue and green world spinning slowly. In the void, white clouds swirled across its surface, and a single moon hung nearby like a silent guardian. It looked peaceful, almost inviting. Commander Vexen stood at the display controls, his 4 powerful arms moving with practiced precision. His species, the Morvac, served as the hegemony's military strategists. They had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived, and their warrior culture had made them perfect enforcers of galactic order. The 3rd planet of system designation 7749 Alpha, Dexon announced. The native species calls itself human. Population, approximately 8 billion, spread across 7 major landmasses. The other council members leaned forward with interest. Zephyrians, tall and graceful with their crystalline skin, whispered among themselves in their musical language. The Kaleri, insectoid beings with compound eyes, clicked their mandibles in what might have been amusement. The massive Gornoth representative, a creature that looked like living stone, rumbled deep in his chest. Technology level, asked Council Prime Zarian, the eldest member of the assembly. His species, the had transcended physical form millennia ago, existing as pure energy contained within elaborate mechanical shells. Primitive Vexen replied, manipulating the display to show human cities, their vehicles, and their weapons. They have achieved basic nuclear fission, simple spaceflight limited to their own system, and crude digital communication networks. Their most advanced weapons are chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. Yes. The ethereal's energy form pulsed with what might have been laughter. How delightfully backward. Continue. Political structure is fragmented, Dexon said, highlighting different regions of the planet in various colors. Over 200 separate nation-states, many in active conflict with each other. They have never achieved global unity for any significant period. Most interesting is their apparent inability to cooperate even when facing common threats. Ambassador Veltar nodded approvingly. Excellent. Division makes them weak. They will compete to surrender first, each hoping to gain favor with us over their rivals. Military analysis? Asked General Korith of the Voidborn, her skeletal features hidden behind a ceremonial mask. Laughable, Dexon replied without hesitation. Their largest military forces number in the millions, but they are scattered across their world and lack unified command. Their weapons cannot penetrate our basic shielding, and their fastest aircraft move at a fraction of our slowest vessels. Speed. A single battlecruiser could dominate their entire planet. The display shifted to show recordings of human conflicts. Soldiers ran across battlefields, their primitive weapons flashing. Cities burned under bombardment from crude artillery. Ships fought on vast oceans, firing metal shells at each other like children throwing stones. Look at them, Veltar said, his voice filled with contempt. They fight constantly among themselves, wasting resources and lives on petty territorial disputes. They have learned nothing from 3,000 years of warfare. Standard psychological profile analysis is complete, reported Dr. Nexus, the hegemony's chief xenopsychologist. The species, the Mentari, possessed natural telepathic abilities that made them excellent at predicting how other species would react to conquest. Humans display typical pre-contact civilization markers: tribalism, resource competition, fear of the unknown, and authority worship. When faced with superior technology and overwhelming force, they will follow historical patterns, which are, Council Prime Zarian asked, initial panic, followed by desperate attempts at negotiation. Then rapid capitulation as their leadership realizes resistance is futile, Dr. Nexus explained. Based on analysis of similar species, we estimate complete surrender within 72 hours of first contact. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered this information. They had performed this same analysis hundreds of times before, on hundreds of different worlds, and the pattern was always the same. A species would fight among themselves until the hegemony arrived, then immediately unite and surrender once they realized how outmatched they were. Fleet composition? Asked General Korath. Standard Package 7, Dexon replied. 12 battle cruisers, 48 destroyers, and 200 support vessels. Overwhelming visual impact combined with precise demonstration of superior firepower. The humans will see our ships and understand that resistance means extinction. Council Prime. Zirian's energy form flickered thoughtfully. And after surrender? Standard integration protocol, Veltar answered. We install a puppet government, extract their most valuable resources, and conscript their population for labor and military service.
Oh.
Their world becomes another supplier. For the hegemony's expansion, timeline for integration, 6 months for basic infrastructure changes, 2 years for complete cultural assimilation. Within a generation, they will be grateful citizens of the hegemony, like all the others. The vote was unanimous. Earth would be conquered, its people enslaved, and its resources stripped away. The great war machines of the hegemony began their preparations, loading weapons and supplies for another easy victory. None of them had bothered to study human history very carefully. If they had, they might have learned something important about what happened when humans were backed into a corner with no way out. They might have learned that sometimes the cornered animal fights back. The sky above Seoul turned black at exactly noon. Not from clouds or storms, but from the massive shadow of something impossible hanging in the air above the city. The alien ship was so large that it covered entire neighborhoods, its dark metal surface reflecting no light. People on the streets stopped walking and stared upward, pointing, others running, many just standing frozen in disbelief. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other major cities, the enormous vessels appeared without warning. They made no sound, created no disturbance in the air, simply materialized as if they had always been there. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. It's like watching mountains float in the sky. Then came the voice. It spoke in perfect Korean to the people of Seoul, flawless English to those in London, in precise Mandarin to the citizens of Beijing. The alien words carried no accent, no hesitation, as if the speakers had been born speaking these languages. People of Earth, the message began, echoing from every television, radio, and electronic device on the planet. You are now subjects of the galactic hegemony. Your governments no longer have authority over you. We do. In the underground bunker, beneath Seoul, General Park Jimin listened to the broadcast with the calm expression of a man who had seen war before. His weathered face showed no fear, only the focused attention of a professional soldier facing a new threat. Around him, junior officers whispered nervously, but Jimin remained silent until the alien message finished. Surrender your weapons, the voice continued. Submit to our authority. You have 72 hours to comply with our demands. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities and your people. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact. The broadcast ended, leaving an eerie silence throughout the bunker. General Park picked up the secure telephone on his desk, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Get me President Kim Dae-ho, he said to his aide. Tell him we have a situation that requires immediate attention. While he waited for the connection, Park turned to his communications officer. Patch me through to the Pentagon, the Kremlin, in Beijing. We need to coordinate with our allies immediately. Officer stammered, What if they can hear our communications? Then we'll speak in code, Park replied simply.
The same codes?
We've been using for decades. If they're smart enough to learn our languages, they might be smart enough to break our codes too. But we can't make decisions based on fear. Cross. The city, at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, Dr. Lee Min-ho had not evacuated with the rest of the civilian population. Instead, he stood in the observatory, adjusting the large telescope to focus on the alien vessel hovering above Seoul. His trained eye studied every detail of the ship's surface, looking for anything that might provide useful information. Hull appears to be made of some kind of composite material, he muttered to himself, making notes on his tablet. No visible seams or construction joints. Either they built this in one piece, or their manufacturing technology is far beyond ours. His assistant, Dr. Choi Yuna, worked at a bank of computers nearby, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards as she analyzed the alien broadcast. "Professor," she called out, "I'm detecting some very interesting patterns in their communication." "Signal. What kind of patterns?" Min-ho asked, not looking away from the telescope. "Quantum entanglement signatures," Yuna replied, her voice filled with excitement despite the circumstances. "They're using quantum communication technology, but there's something strange about the frequency modulation. It's almost like they're using a standard protocol, something we might be able to decode." Min-ho finally turned from the telescope, his eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "How long would you need to map their communication network?" "Give me access to every radio telescope in the country, and I might be able to do it in a few hours," Yuna said. "But sir, shouldn't we be evacuating instead of studying them?" "Everyone else is running away," Min-ho replied. "Someone needs to. Stay and learn what we can about these visitors. Knowledge is the only weapon we have right now." In Washington, Admiral James Harrison studied satellite images of the alien formations with the eye of a military strategist. The ships were positioned over major population centers, but their arrangement followed patterns that seemed familiar to him. He had seen similar formations in naval history books, classic positioning used by fleets preparing for siege warfare. "They're not just trying to intimidate us," he told his staff. "They're positioning themselves for maximum psychological impact while maintaining tactical flexibility. Look at the spacing between their vessels, the way they've positioned there. Largest ships over our most important cities." In Moscow, Russian scientists worked frantically to analyze every aspect of the alien broadcast, breaking down the signal into component parts and studying each frequency for useful information. In Beijing, General Wang compared the alien ship positions to ancient military texts, looking for patterns that might reveal their tactical thinking. Around the world, the reaction was not what the aliens had expected. Instead of panic and immediate surrender, they had awakened something far more dangerous. Human beings, when faced with the impossible, did not simply accept defeat. They began to study, to learn, to adapt. The 72-hour countdown had begun. But the humans were not preparing to surrender. They were preparing to understand their enemy, and in understanding, perhaps find a way to fight back. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had given humanity time to think. The 72 hours passed like a slow countdown to disaster. Commander Thexon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet spin below. His forearms moved restlessly as he reviewed the reports from his intelligence officers. Something was wrong. "Status report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the ship's communication system.
Oh.
"Sir, the humans have not responded to our ultimatum," reported his aide, a younger Morvac warrior named Cathar. "Their governments have made no contact with us. No surrender broadcasts, no negotiation attempts." Thexon's eyes narrowed. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever simply ignored the hegemony's demands.
Ow.
There was always panic, always desperate attempts to bargain for better terms, always the pathetic hope that submission might earn mercy. "What are they doing instead?" he asked. "Their military forces have withdrawn from major cities," Cathar replied, consulting his data tablet. "They appear to be moving to defensive positions in remote areas. Their communication networks are active but heavily encrypted." "Defensive positions?" Thexon repeated, his voice filled with disbelief. "They think they can defend against us?" The idea was so absurd that several officers on the bridge made the clicking sound that passed for laughter among the Morvac. There, weapons could turn entire cities to glass in minutes. Their shields could deflect anything the humans might fire at them. The very thought of humans mounting a defense was like watching insects prepare to fight a hurricane. Perhaps they needed demonstration, Nexon decided. Target one of their military installations. Something visible, but not too valuable. We want them to understand our power, not destroy everything at once. The targeting computer quickly identified Seoul Base Alpha, a large military airfield on the outskirts of the South Korean capital. It was perfect for their purposes. Large enough to make an impressive display, but far enough from the city center to avoid unnecessary civilian casualties. The hegemony preferred to rule living subjects, not empty wastelands. Charging plasma, Lance announced the weapons officer. Target acquired. Ready to fire on your command. Fire, Dexon ordered. The beam of superheated plasma lanced down from the ship like a sword of pure light. It struck the airfield with devastating precision, turning concrete runways into flowing rivers of molten stone. Aircraft hangars vaporized. Instantly, their metal frames becoming clouds of superheated gas. The entire facility disappeared in a blinding flash of destruction. Perfect, Dexon said with satisfaction. Now they understand what happens to those who resist us? But 20 kilometers away, in a reinforced bunker hidden beneath a mountain, General Park Jimin was not thinking about surrender. He was thinking about the tactical implications of what he had just witnessed. Around him, his staff worked frantically at computer terminals, analyzing every aspect of the alien attack. "Did you get the readings?" he asked Colonel Ominsiok, his chief intelligence officer. "Yes, sir," Minsiok replied, his fingers flying across his tablet as he processed the data. "The plasma weapon has a very specific energy signature. Temperature reached approximately 50,000 degrees Celsius. The beam maintained coherence for exactly 4.7 seconds. Charging time? 3 seconds before firing, based on the energy buildup we detected. And sir, there's something else. The weapon array on their ship went dark for nearly 10 seconds after the shot. Some kind of cooldown period." Park nodded slowly. In his 40 years of military service, he had learned that every weapon had weaknesses, every tactic had counters. The aliens might have superior technology, but they were still bound by the same physical laws that governed human warfare. "Get me a connection to Dr. Lee Minho," he ordered. "I want to know everything his team has learned about these ships." The secure communication link crackled to life, and Minho's voice came through clearly. "General, we've made significant progress. Their communication system uses quantum entanglement, but it follows predictable patterns. We can anticipate their command structure rotations," explained Park said. "They're using a hierarchical system, like a pyramid," Minho explained. "Orders flow down from the command ship to sector commanders, then to individual vessels. But the rotation patterns are mathematical, not random. Can predict which ship will be giving orders at any given time." Park felt a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "They fight like they've never faced real opposition. Every move is by the book." "That's exactly right," Minho agreed. "They're following standard procedures, probably the same ones they've used for thousands of years. But General, there's something else. Dr. Choi Yuna has discovered something about their quantum network." The connection switched to Dr. Yuna's voice. "Sir, their entire coordination system runs on quantum entanglement. Every ship, every weapon, every communication array is connected through this network. It's incredibly sophisticated, but it has one major vulnerability, which is, if we can introduce a feedback loop into their quantum network, we can disrupt their entire command structure. Think of it like a computer virus, but one that affects their ability to coordinate attacks." Park's smile widened. Around the world, he knew similar conversations were taking place. Russian submarines were moving to new positions using underwater terrain to hide from alien sensors. Chinese engineers were working around the clock to reverse engineer fragments of alien technology that had fallen to Earth during the initial arrival. American satellites were adjusting their orbits to create a communication network the aliens couldn't detect. "How long do you need?" he asked Yuna. "Give me 6 hours," she replied with confidence. "I'll give you their entire fleet." For the first time in 3 days, General Park Jimin allowed himself to feel hope. The aliens had made a critical error. They had given humanity time to study them, to learn their weaknesses, to adapt their tactics. Now it was time to show them what humans could do when they were backed into a corner. The art of war was about to get a very human interpretation. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon as Dr. Choi Yuna pressed the final key on her computer. 6 hours of non-stop work had led to this moment. Her quantum virus was ready to upload into the alien communication network. Around her, the underground laboratory buzzed with nervous energy as technicians made final preparations. "This will work?" asked General Park Jimin, standing behind her chair. "As certain as I can be," Yuna replied, her fingers hovering over the activation key. "Once I release this, their entire command structure will collapse. But we'll only have a small window of opportunity before they adapt." "Then we better make it count," Park said. He spoke into his communication headset. "All units, this is command. Operation Sunrise begins in 30 seconds. Round the world, human forces waited in hidden positions. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, Russian submarines loaded with modified nuclear missiles adjusted their targeting systems. In the mountains of China, mobile missile launchers emerged from camouflaged bunkers. In the Nevada desert, American pilots climbed into experimental aircraft that had been hastily modified with alien technology fragments. "Virus uploading now," Yuna announced, pressing the activation key. High above Earth, Commander Thexan was reviewing morning reports when the first signs of trouble appeared. His communication display flickered, showing garbled messages from his fleet commanders. Then the tactical display began showing impossible readings, ships appearing and disappearing at random. "What's happening?" he demanded, his forearms gesturing frantically at the malfunctioning displays. "Sir, we're experiencing some kind of network interference," his aide reported, panic creeping into his voice. "The quantum communication array is showing error messages across all frequencies." Thexan felt a chill run through his body. The quantum network was their most advanced technology, supposedly impossible to hack or disrupt. If the humans had somehow compromised it, his fleet was in serious danger. "Switch to backup communications," he ordered. Manual coordination protocols. But it was too late. The virus had already spread through the network like wildfire, turning the aliens' greatest advantage into their greatest weakness. Ship commanders found themselves unable to coordinate with their neighbors. Weapon systems received conflicting orders. Navigation computers displayed false readings. "Sir," the aide called out in alarm. Multiple contacts rising from the ocean's surface. Projectiles. Incoming. The nuclear missiles erupted from the ocean like angry sea serpents, their modified warheads glowing with deadly purpose. The human scientists had studied the alien plasma weapons for 3 days, learning exactly how their energy shields worked. Each missile had been carefully tuned to exploit the specific frequency weaknesses in the alien. Defensive systems. The first wave of missiles struck the alien fleet with devastating precision. The massive ships, accustomed to deflecting primitive weapons with ease, found their shields overloading and failing. Explosions bloomed across their hulls as the nuclear warheads found their targets. "Shields down on 7 vessels," reported the weapons officer, his voice filled with disbelief. "Are they penetrating our defenses?" Commander Thexan stared at the tactical display in horror. His perfect formation was dissolving into chaos. Ships scattered in all directions, their captains unable to coordinate their movements. Some vessels collided with each other in their panic to escape the human attack. "They're adapting faster. Then we can respond," he whispered to himself. This isn't possible, but the human attack was just beginning. As the alien fleet struggled to regroup, the second wave launched from hidden bases around the world. Small fighter aircraft, too tiny to be considered serious threats, swarmed up from the Earth's surface like angry insects. Above Beijing, Captain Li Wei led his squadron in a daring assault on the alien destroyer hovering over the city. His modified fighter used reverse-engineered alien technology to match the enemy ship's acceleration patterns, staying in the sensor blind spots while his weapons targeted critical systems. "Target their engine arrays," he ordered his wingman. "If we can't destroy them, we'll make sure they can't maneuver." The small human craft darted between the alien ships like minnows swimming around whales, their pilots using every trick they had learned from studying the enemy's tactics. They struck at power conduits, communication arrays, and weapon systems with surgical precision. Above Moscow, Captain Petrov's squadron deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons that disrupted the aliens' navigation systems. The massive ships, suddenly blinded and deaf, drifted helplessly through the sky like sleeping giants above Seoul. Captain Park Soo-yang led the most dangerous mission of all. Her squadron was tasked with attacking the command ship itself, the massive vessel that coordinated the entire invasion fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy it," she told her pilots over the radio. "We want to disable their command capabilities, target their communication arrays and bridge systems." The human fighters dove toward the command ship like hawks attacking a dragon. Their weapons, enhanced with alien technology, punched through the ship's outer defenses. Explosions rippled across the vessel's hull as critical systems failed one by one commander. Dexon watched his command center dissolve into chaos around him. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights flickered on and off. His communication systems were completely dead. "Sir, we're losing ships across the entire fleet," his aide reported. "Humans are everywhere. They're attacking from angles we never considered." Dexon stared at the tactical display, watching his magnificent fleet fall apart like a house of cards. For the first time in 3,000 years, the hegemony was losing a battle, and they were losing it to a species they had dismissed as primitive. The age of easy conquest was over. The humans had turned the tables, and now the hunters had become the hunted. 3 months had passed since the great ships fell from the sky like dying stars. The Hegemony Council chamber, once filled with the confident voices of conquerors, now echoed with whispers of fear and desperate planning. Emergency sessions had become the norm as reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. Ambassador Veltar stood in the center of the chamber, heavy chains binding his 6 arms. The proud diplomat who had once helped plan the conquest of hundreds of worlds now faced the judgment of his own people. His ceremonial robes had been replaced with the simple gray uniform of a prisoner awaiting trial. "Explain yourself," Council Prime Zarian demanded, his energy form flickering with barely contained rage. "How did a species we classified as primitive not only resist our forces, but completely destroy our most advanced fleet?" Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. "They didn't fight like primitives, Council Prime. They fought like us. Better than us. They studied our tactics, learned our weaknesses, and turned our own technology against us." The other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Zephyrians whispered among themselves in their musical language, their crystalline, skin dim with worry. The Kaleri clicked their mandibles nervously. Even the massive Gornoth representative seemed smaller somehow, his stone-like features marked with concern. "But how?" General Korath of the Voidborn insisted. "Our quantum communication network was supposedly unhackable. Our shields were designed to deflect any primitive weapon. Our tactics had proven successful for 3,000 years. The humans didn't try to match our technology," Veltar explained, his words heavy with defeat. "They studied it, understood it, and found ways to make it work against us. They introduced a virus into our quantum network that turned our greatest advantage into our greatest weakness." Commander Thexon, one of the few survivors of the invasion fleet, stepped forward. His 4 arms bore the scars of battle, and his warrior's pride had been replaced with something that looked almost like respect. "They adapted faster than we could respond," he said. "Every time we changed our tactics, they had already prepared countermeasures. It was like fighting an enemy that could predict our every move. The truth was already spreading across the galaxy through the same quantum networks the hegemony had used to coordinate their empire. The humans, rather than keeping their victory secret, had broadcast detailed reports of their methods to every species that would listen. Technical manuals, tactical analyses, and strategic guides were being transmitted to worlds that had suffered under hegemony rule for generations. On the planet Zephoria, crystalline beings who had served as the hegemony's communication specialists for 2,000 years suddenly found themselves receiving messages from Earth. The humans were offering to share their knowledge, to teach other species how to resist oppression. On the insectoid world of Kaleri Prime, the compound-eyed warriors who had once enforced hegemony law began studying human military tactics. The same species that had helped conquer dozens of worlds now prepared to fight for their own freedom. On Earth, President Kim Dae-ho stood before the United Nations General Assembly, but his words were not meant only for human ears. The speech was being broadcast across the galaxy, transmitted through the captured alien communication networks to every world that could receive it. "We offer our friendship to all beings who seek freedom," he declared, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's newfound responsibility. "We offer our knowledge to those who would resist tyranny. We offer our protection to those who cannot protect themselves." The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from across the galaxy, from species that had been silent for centuries under hegemony rule. They wanted to learn human tactics, to understand how a supposedly primitive species had achieved the impossible. Dr. Lee Min-ho, now leading the newly formed Interstellar Defense Initiative, worked 18-hour days coordinating with rebel movements across the galaxy. His team had grown from a handful of scientists to hundreds of experts in alien technology, communication, and strategy. The Zephyrians are requesting tactical support for their independence movement, Dr. Choi Yuna reported during their daily briefing. "The Navari want detailed instructions on how we modified the plasma weapons. And the Kalari are asking if we can teach them quantum network infiltration." General Park Jimin, now serving as Earth's first Minister of Galactic Defense, studied the strategic reports with growing satisfaction. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. "We've turned their own playbook against them," he observed. Every world that declares independence makes the hegemony weaker. Every species that learns our methods becomes a potential ally. The hegemony's empire began to crumble from within. Species after species declared independence, armed with human knowledge and inspired by human example. The Gornath, whose massive strength had been used to enforce hegemony law, turned their power against their former masters. The Ethereals, whose advanced technology had made conquest possible, found their own worlds in rebellion. Within 6 months, the hegemony had lost control of over half their territory. The galaxy's balance of power shifted not through conquest, through the simple act of showing others that resistance was possible. In the end, the hegemony's greatest mistake had been their assumption that Earth would follow the same pattern as every other world they had conquered. Instead, humanity had written a completely new ending to a story that had remained unchanged for millennia. The age of inevitable conquest was over. The age of determined resistance had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.